Moshe Gersht, welcome to Jewish Money Matters. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm very excited that we have this chance to really talk about your latest work. Well, you have two books out that I'm a big fan of. Your first book is It's All the Same to Me, a Torah Guide to Inner Peace and Love of Life. Beautiful, beautiful book. And that's how I first initially discovered your work. And you have a new book out also, The Three Conditions, How Intention, Joy, and Certainty Will Supercharge Your Life, which I felt was the perfect sequel to your first book. It just took us further along this path of learning how to deal with life and the beauty that is all of life, including the challenging parts of it, right? And maybe you wondered, why does Yael want me in a financial podcast, in a podcast about money? And I'll go ahead and I'll tell you the reason already. The reason, Moshe, I thought of you when I started becoming familiar with your work is that when it comes to money and to a person's financial situation, I see this at every socioeconomic level, every level of income. There's often times when there's a very strong resistance to what is at the moment. And often also this assumption that that resistance is what will get me out of my situation as well. And yet throughout your work, you turn this assumption on its head and you present us with this liberating and effective spiritual practice that really can lead us to a path not just of emotional well-being and wellness, but also I find even financial wellness and even, professional fulfillment and so on. So I thought this would be a beautiful conversation for the people in the audience. So welcome again.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. I'm so happy that you've enjoyed the books. And it's funny, even as you're speaking, what came up for me was it's true. A lot of people look to my work and see it as like an emotional or almost psychotherapeutic, approach. Truthfully, it's also that, but it's a spiritual, mental, psychological, philosophical, it's like all these different things coming together. But the way that you framed it, the clarity is just you can't get to any of the other things in the world of abundance or mental clarity or insight when you're wound up, right?
Yeah.
When you're fighting, when you're resistant. And the emotional sphere and the psychological sphere are the bridge and the gateway to all of our mental and intellectual clarity on life, on ourself, on what we're doing here, and in our alignment to reaching up to something higher and
Yeah.
deeper within ourselves. That's where we open up this gateway to the world of abundance, whether that's financial or otherwise, right? That could be
Mhm.
relationships you're looking for, and that could be, a place that you want to live in, a location or a job you want to have. Everything in the world of growth and development starts right where you are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you just alluded to a very important point that I think is often overlooked, which is, the inner work is really where it's at. And very often we waste so much time and energy pointing fingers at things that are external to us that we really have no control over. The only thing we have control over is our own inner world. And this is what you help us tackle, which is really the key to unlock all these things that you're mentioning at a, so let's start with It's All the Same to Me, which I love the title. I love the book. I love the title. And, when you look at this, somebody might interpret this idea as, oh, well, it's indifference, complacency, perhaps even denial. But it's exactly the opposite of what you teach us in the book. You teach us the practice of ishtavus. Why don't we start by defining what that is, and then we can get into practical application.
Sure. And even just two quick funny anecdotes around the title. One of them has to do with your assumption. Somebody could pick up the book, It's All the Same to Me, and
Right.
they might think, oh, like a laissez-faire, blah, like doesn't have so much meaning. And a woman came to me the other day and said, I was in a really dark place and I was really depressed. And I picked up your book and it said, It's all the same to me. And she's like, yeah, exactly. And so she bought the book because she thought it was resonating with her darkness.
She was going to feed her darkness.
Exactly. And she said she went through the book and it was everything she needed to get out of it and to find her light.
Wow.
And I thought, like, you don't even realize some of the marketing tactics when you're putting things into the world. You don't know what that's drawing in. So that was one funny thing. When I told my brother that I was going to call the book It's All the Same to Me, he said he was going to write a book called It's All the Same to Him. because it's so far away from reality to say something like it's all the same to me when clearly it's not, right? There are highs and lows in life, and there's more and less, and some bank accounts reflect more, right? And some less. And so how can you say it's the same? And now to directly answer your question, it comes back to this idea of hishtavos. And what is hishtavos? So the Baal Shem Tov, who's the founder of Hasidus, about 300 years ago, he popularized the idea, but this is a really old idea in Torah philosophy, which means the word shaveh means the same or equal,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about finding equanimity. It's an internal space where your inner reality can be okay and aligned, tapped into a higher truth while the things around you are still chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
The world is moving and dynamic, but there is a deep well of stillness that exists within you. And when you come and touch that place and become acquainted with the part of you, which isn't just a part of you, but is the essence of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
so life becomes significantly less of a struggle because you stop resisting everything on the surface. That's really what the power of Hishtavos is, recognizing that I'm not in control of what goes on out there. I do have some level of control of what goes on in here, in between
Right.
these two spaces. And it's our resistance and attachment to reality that keeps us caught up in suffering and pain in our life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what is the mental reframe that a person has to do, or the mental exercise to get to that emotional state of Ishtabus?
So obviously there's a whole book on it, but I would say the first step is actually recognizing. It's becoming aware. Awareness is the first step in, I think, in
Right.
all spiritual growth.
Right.
So seeing, like, where are your demons? Where are the parts of your mind that keep sending you down the rabbit hole and the tunnel of pain that you find yourself in? So is it in your relationships? Is it in your relationship to your purpose in life? Is it your career? Is it how you see, your spouse or your kids? Or is it how you see yourself, right? There are going to be areas of your life where they're coming up more often, if they're in all of them. So there's something really big within yourself that you can tweak. But it's first recognizing, how often am I resisting reality? How often am I in a fight with life? Like there
Mm-hmm.
was this, it's a certain 80-year-old individual who was at the time, I think he was 77, uh, a billionaire. He was the first billionaire that I'd ever met. Someone put us together thinking that he would benefit from a conversation and that he might want to support some of the work that I'm doing. In the conversation, he said, "Okay, Rabbi, teach me something." So I said, "I want to teach you about happiness." I had an idea I wanted to share with him. And he looked at me and he said, "No, teach me something else." So I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I don't believe in happiness."
Oh.
I said, "I've never heard that sentence before." And he said, "Yeah, I don't believe in happiness. Some people are born happy, some people are born unhappy. That's where the conversation ends. Teach me something else." So I was young and naive. And so I said, "No, let me tell you. Psychology says like this, neuroscience says like that, the Torah says like this, Hasidus says like that, every spiritual tradition says like this." And I'm trying to paint this picture to him, which by the end of it, he, as politely as he could, hung up on me. It was a Zoom call. And that was it. I didn't think anything of it, but he became for years my metaphor of the person who you can have it all. I mean, we don't realize how much the number of billion is, right? But it's a
Right.
lot.
Right.
You can have that and still feel like, I don't believe in happiness. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe that that's part of my system.
Wow.
Right? So it's so important to recognize that the inner is going to shape your entire existence, like everything that's happening in your life. You can even go and get the things that you think you want. But when we really break down what reality is, everything you want because of how you believe it's going to make you feel.
Mm.
Right? That's what you're trying to get something from it. Like if you want the relationship, you feel like, oh, then I'll feel love, I'll feel safe, I'll feel accepted, I'll feel part of something. If you're looking for a new car, it's because then I'll feel that I have more access and power. And there's all of these different things that we're looking to get that's behind the physical reality. There's the thing on the surface, and then there's the state of consciousness that I want to embody. That's what I'm really looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Happy ending to that story was a few years later. he I don't know how we got back on a call, but we were on a call for something else, and he said, Rabbi, teach me something. And I was a little bit older and a little bit wiser at that point, so I said, I want to teach you about wisdom. And he said, okay, pray tell. And I proceeded to teach him about happiness. And at that point, he was able to receive what I had to say, and he ended up getting the book. It's all the same to me.
Mhm.
And I got a phone call from him 2 months later saying, for the first time in his life, he finally feels like he has permission to be happy and to be
Wow.
joyful. And that
Wow.
means you can. That now he's the metaphor for something completely different in my mind. He's the person that you can be 80 years old, but you don't give up on learning and growth, and
Mm,
something can happen for you. And you can, it doesn't matter where you are in the process. Like, we're always moving, we're always growing. You don't know when you're going to get that insight that changes your life.
mhm.
At the same time, if you can learn some of these lessons younger, like, think
Right.
about the rest of the life that you get to have.
Right, 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 right. And as you before you gave me the end of the story, I made a note here when you told me his initial reaction to the first conversation. I made a note that says, "Do we not believe we deserve?" Right? Are we walking around with this very horrible belief that we don't deserve all the goodness, all the wonder, all the happiness that God, whatever you and I call it God, right? But whatever you want to call it, um has available for us, that's very sad.
Yeah, the world is a mirror. There's a
Hmm.
great story of a Buddhist monk, and he's in monk school with all his other monk friends. And one by one, they're learning from their teacher, and they're popping off into enlightenment. Each one is like, I get it, I get it, I get it.
Right.
And this one student doesn't get it, and he still is sad and negative and doesn't see the world and how all of reality fits together. And he turns to his teacher and says, I don't get it. Why are all my friends becoming enlightened and I remain unenlightened? And the teacher looks at him and he says, what you fail to see in here, you'll fail to see out there.
Hmm.
Meaning, the degree to which you still see yourself as not worthy, as not good, as unlovable, you're not going to see a reality where love pervades that world. If you see yourself as empty and missing, so then you don't see a world of abundance and
Right.
opportunity, right? So our inner perception of self directly impacts how we see everything else around us. So yeah, if you don't believe that you deserve happiness, or you feel like you have to earn it, which I know most people that I know were raised with the idea of conditional love and conditional happiness,
Mm,
right? And if your love is conditional and your happiness is conditional, so that means that you don't inherently deserve it. You're not inherently worthy of it. If
right,
that's true, so you don't naturally experience it in your life.
right, right. So let's revert back to Ishtabus. It's not denying a particular situation, right? Because denying it would lead to more pain. It's kind of freeing yourself to accept it. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's the right word. Acceptance,
Hmm.
allowing, letting life be the way that it is.
Hmm.
But it's seeing both, meaning every situation has two things going on at any given moment. There's what's happening, and then there's how you see and feel about it, right? There's your
Hmm.
inner response to
Right.
life, and then there's life itself. So as far as life itself, sometimes there's things you can do about it, whatever's happening, and sometimes
Hmm.
there's nothing you can do about it. But your inner reaction, right? If you're having a positive reaction to it, so you're not looking to change anything, but if you find yourself stuck, right, and you're in resistance to life as it's happening, you know, you woke up one day thinking that you were about to sign a really big deal, and you
Hmm.
show up, or you get in the car to drive there, and then you hear on the news that there's a giant fire. And think about how many people, we think about, there was just the fires in California recently, and all the people that went through hardship that were connected to the fire. And then you have to think about all the people who actually didn't have any real estate there, but their lives were disrupted by the fact that they were connected to people who were, right? So
Right.
we have plans in this life, and you wake up one day and you think that you're gonna finally get this big deal done, and something happens that stops that from happening. So internally, you might feel, let's go with angry. Yeah, let's say you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling angry. That's the emotion that comes up for you. So what I'm not saying is suppress it and say everything's okay. That's
Right.
not what we're talking about, because
Right.
that's being okay, being the same, hishtavos, the equanimity is allowing yourself to have all of the emotions, meaning it's
Mm-hmm.
all the same to me. That's
Okay.
also okay. I'm feeling angry. That's okay, Moshe. This makes sense. I understand why you're feeling angry. You can say that to yourself, right? I get that. That's allowed,
Okay.
right? That itself reduces significant amount of the overwhelming feeling of what that will grow into if you
Right.
either try to fight it or you give it energy and feed it.
Right. Right. So we're
It's
not
like
saying that we're always going to feel amazing. We're allowed to feel all the feelings. Um, and give ourselves permission to feel them, but then there's a point where, because of the accept, because we're not fighting it, then that actually allows us to snap out of the negativity if
that,
there are negative feelings involved.
that's right. For those who have children, it's relatively easier to understand.
Yeah.
Our emotions are like our children.
Yeah.
So if your kid is screaming about something, so telling him no, right, or her no, and pushing away from it is actually going to make more and more of a mess, right? They're going to throw a tantrum. It's good, you know. Sometimes the only thing you can do is bend down and just sit with them, give them a hug,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
it. There's
Right.
not even anything to say. It's just like, I'm with you. It makes sense that you feel
Right.
angry
We have
right
to
now.
accept what is at that moment.
That's it. And by the way,
Right.
it doesn't make it go away, but like a few minutes later, that kid's going to go off and be fine, right? And they're going to
Mm-hmm.
feel loved and held because you did
Exactly.
that. And now all of a sudden, there's this amazing peace that opens up. Uh, Interesting that you phrase it in that way when you said, so it's not like we're going to be feeling great all the time. I've heard that phrase a lot when I have this conversation. I think it's important to note most of the time we're not angry and frustrated at life.
Right.
I think mo
If we're not
mo
resisting it.
that's right. I think most of the time most people are somewhere in the neutral to slightly positive or slightly negative zone. It's somewhere in the, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, somewhere between 4 and a 6. Six being pretty good for a lot of people. And if you have a really good day, it feels like an 8, 9, or 10, and a really bad day feels like a 3, 2, or 1. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like somewhere in the middle. And we all have our own. It's a big scale, right? Everyone
Right.
has their own scale. So most of the time, things are okay. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
not always fighting a fire. We're not
Mm-hmm.
always dealing with an emergency, and our child's not always throwing a tantrum. It might
Right.
feel like it is, but most of the time, things are okay. And when you live with hishtavos, when you're a little bit more open, a little less resistant, a little non-attached, so what you end up getting for free on accident without having to try is more joy. So you
Mm-hmm.
you you do spend more time, significantly more time, in joy and inspiration and enthusiasm. Because if more of the time you're not fighting, you become like this pipe, right? That's just open, that's not
Right.
clogged. So then everything naturally flows through it.
Right. I think what we're getting at is an ability to not just accept what is, but also see ourselves from a different lens. And if we identify with the the reality, which is we're souls with bodies and not bodies with souls, meaning there are no limits. And this is going back to the idea of deserving or not deserving, right? If we that's when you were saying, like, if you see your if you see the world in a certain lens, and that's where I was thinking, like, if you see yourself as an infinite potential, right? Like this infinite piece of the oneness of the world, right? A soul, then you already, your perspective on living life, on deserving, and even on wanting, right? It just feels so much more aligned because your wants are for something bigger than like so I think it boils down to really fine-tuning the lens and seeing not just the external reality as more than what we can touch and feel, but starts with seeing ourselves as much more than a limited body.
I mean, absolutely. The degree to which you realize that the body, for as much as we love it, is a vehicle for
Right.
something more. So that allows you, what that gives you is the permission to be less attached to
Mm-hmm.
the things in the material. It
Right.
doesn't mean you don't want, though. You see, we live in a world of wanting and not wanting. Everything is wanting and not wanting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's everything in your life. Even in this conversation, there's where you want it to go and where you don't want to go, right?
Right.
What you would want to happen, what you don't want to happen. All of life is filled with wanting and not wanting. And the secret lies in, can you be non-attached and non-resistant in that wanting,
Yes, I remember you
right?
speak about that on the book, and I remember underlining this part. It was one of my favorite parts because it very much relates to this idea of our financial lives, like wanting, like, and you say that the problem isn't with wanting per se. It's that we don't know how to properly want anything, and we need like proper training in our wanting. You talk about resistant wanting and surrendered wanting. So help us here a little bit so that this really lands for people and help train us in this wanting, if you will.
Yeah, it's funny. I see recently I wanted to change that language to make it easier for people and make it the
Mm,
difference between wanting and need, because
hmm.
that's the but it's not really true. It's a feeling. Need feels like if I don't have this, there's a problem. That's what
Right,
need is.
right.
And want is I can want something and not get it, but I enjoy the fact that I want it. Right? Like I can
Mm,
even enjoy the wanting of it, but I'm surrendered in the outcome. Like if it doesn't happen, I'm fine. Like this
right,
is cool. Like it's still okay.
right.
You can't see because I have a Zoom background here, but I have a vision board behind me and it has all sorts of different things that I'm working on right now. And I have fun with it and I like it a lot. And uh, I want things, but if they happen, great. If they don't, I really enjoyed the process of trying to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what surrendered wanting looks like. I can
Mm-hmm.
still have a desire that I'm moving in the direction of, but I'm not caught up in the desire. I use
Yeah,
that as a point to move towards as I enjoy
yeah,
everything in my life. I enjoy
yeah,
you enjoying every moment along the way.
yeah.
And or not. And when you don't enjoy it, it's like, okay, so now I'm not enjoying it, but I'm present with it. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And as a recovering perfectionist, that, if we would go back 10, 15 years, that wasn't something I was used to. Having an idea in my mind and wanting to manifest that, I could get caught up like a dog on a bone. It's like that. This has to happen. And that world of should and supposed to and need, that's all resistant wanting. It's
Mm-hmm.
wanting, but it's built into it is resistance
Yeah.
because there's all the things I don't want that can't happen also. And if
Mm-hmm.
those things can't happen, so I'm basically set up for failure because not only if I get it, I'll be happy for a moment, but the whole way there I was afraid I wasn't, or I pushed
Right.
beyond my capacity. And if I don't get it, so then I'm crushed. So that's not an approach that works for most people most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, and we miss the beauty of in the journey, right? And it's like when we set a goal. I always tell people the goal is very nice, and it's important to set those goals, but the the beauty, the real beauty is not in the goal itself. It's in who you become along the journey towards reaching that goal. Whether you get there or not, it's almost irrelevant. It's the journey that the person you're going to become along the way.
Absolutely. And also there's also the things you're looking to do in this world. And that's fun. That's like the gift of life is you
Right.
get to have goals. You
Right.
get you get to set points and sometimes, and you only get to find this out in hindsight, sometimes the goal you have was only there so you'd go down the road and make a turn and go
Mm,
somewhere else. So
yes.
even that goal itself is important, right?
Yeah.
Like you might wake up one morning and decide, okay, I'm going to the beach today, right? If you have the
Mhm.
luxury of making that decision. And so you get up and you start driving to the beach, and on the highway you see another sign that says to go somewhere else, and you have this impulse of like, actually I'm going to go over there. And so you end up going somewhere else completely.
Hmm.
But you would never have gone to that second place unless you got up and followed your, bliss or your intuition, your goal for the first piece. So
Right.
sometimes you think you're going one way and then you go somewhere else. And a person with negative self-talk might say, I can't believe I thought to go to this other place. What was I thinking? That you go through this whole, none of that. It was important. It led you somewhere else. Attached to nothing, open to everything is,
Oh,
I
I
think
like
the,
that.
yeah.
Attached to nothing, open to everything. Love
I
that.
think, yeah, I think that's Patanjali. But
Yeah.
yeah, that is
you'll appreciate this example as you're talking to us about how the point of the goal might be to take you in another direction. You're an author, so you might appreciate it. I think about a year ago, I started working on my first book. And as I'm working on my first book, I had all these plans for the book. And suddenly that book was just not happening. And it was not happening. But how could it not be happening? Like, it's just like, that's the book that people have been asking me for. And it's the book that I'm meant to write. And as I'm going through this process, suddenly the idea of the book that I'm actually writing became so crystal clear in my mind, to the point that I like literally had the exact outline. Before I was like so struggling with the outline or whatever. It became so clear. I'm like, oh, now I see. There's another book. It's not that this book is not going to ever happen. It's that my first book is actually not that book. My first book is this other book. So now I'm in the process of writing the second book, which is going to be the first book.
I love it. I love it. And I'll share with you something. I haven't shared it all that often, but people don't know this. I wrote the three conditions first,
Oh, there you
and I wrote it, and then COVID hit,
go.
and I felt that the energy of the three conditions was not appropriate for what people were going through right then. It was a different
Wow.
energy. Was so I personally had a different energy and was working on something else internally, and I felt that the world needed something that could allow for the space of
Mm-hmm.
chaos and disruption and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, which most people on the planet were all experiencing together. So it's all the same to me, was born from that personal work. And then I shelved the three conditions until later, until I felt that the world was a little bit more open and aligned for that.
Wow. Okay. So now I see how this could all work out. You see, people? Thank you for sharing that with me. And going
You're
into
welcome.
that book, the three conditions, you talk about three conditions that are going to supercharge our life. And you say here, I think at the beginning of the book, that changing your thoughts is not going to be enough. Yes, you changing your thoughts is important. It's going to change your reality, but it takes time. And what you're giving us here, apparently, is something that's going to really help us. It's going to be a quantum leap, right? And these three conditions. So why don't you touch on these a little bit, and we'll start. Can you tell us what they are and give us a little bit of a definition, what you mean by them?
Sure. And maybe we'll start with the end of the subtitle, which is supercharge your life, and
Right.
what that means. Like what does it mean to supercharge your life, and why is that, you know, so important? And I see life as happening on several dimensions, right?
Right.
And you could go through life here, or you can go through life up here, right? And it's not as binary as that sounded, but right, because all of life is going to have ebbs and flows, but your baseline for how you're going through the general experience of your life completely shifts based on your inner reference point to how you
Right.
see two things. How
Mm-hmm.
do you see yourself, and how do you see the world you're in? What do
Right.
you believe about yourself? Are you good and able? And how do you see the world? Is the world essentially good and supportive? If the answer to those questions are in the affirmative, if it's positive, you experience joy and love and peace and optimism and positivity and hope. And there's a natural resilience that you're given to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you move through it, which
Mm-hmm.
opens up doors beyond our imagination. So that type of life is a supercharged life. The life
Right.
where you feel like nothing can ultimately get you down. And even if you get knocked down today, you will get up another day and fight tomorrow. And even if you miss this train, you don't believe in there's only one train in your life. You live in a train station. So you're taking trains all the time. Like if you miss this train, you catch the next train. And you
Right.
recognize that no matter what shows up in your life, it's a reminder, an opportunity, or a lesson to learn, or it's leading you somewhere else.
Right.
That perception changes your whole view
Mm-hmm.
on reality
Mm-hmm.
and energetically shifts everything inside.
Right. So you're
That
more
that's what we're
able to
looking
stay in
for.
the six range, the 6 and 8, as we're talking
We
before.
we right, we want to be living six and up.
Right. Exactly.
Life is gonna take us all over the place. When you go through a deep challenge, you're gonna have a day that feels like a one. It's the bottom of the barrel for you. That's
Mm-hmm.
gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen for everyone. And then
Right.
there are the days that are a 10. And we're all gonna have different days, but those are all surface. Internally, you want to if you want. I know I want to be living in a place where I'm rooted in the openness, where my baseline is going to be resonating at a frequency that is joyful and
Right.
positive and peaceful, because we attract into our lives what we're projecting out into the world. We become a channel for all of that goodness.
Mm-hmm.
We bring that into our life. When you're in that space, a supercharged life directly impacts your behaviors. You become the person you want to be. It impacts our
Right.
relationships, right? It's the catalyst for having more well-being in every relationship that you have. It's what you attract into your life. It's the way that
Mm-hmm.
you see your sense of self. It's um, your community and your creativity and your capacity to channel and your healing, everything, your health, everything comes through this space of higher frequency. So that's what supercharge means to me. So
Mm-hmm.
how do we get there?
Yes. How do we get there? And I'll ask a question also, just for the skeptics in the room who might be listening to us and might be saying, okay, these two, they have a natural tendency to be up there in the six and up. Um, I'll tell you why I'm asking the question, because you say in your book something very interesting that surprised to me. You said that if you want to get the results that you get, you have to do what you're doing. You don't need to necessarily believe what you believe. However, we just said that a fundamental part of this process is believing in it's the way you see yourself, is the way you see the world outside of you, right? If you believe that you are worthy and you're good and you're infinite, and the world around you is supportive and it's good, and everything is oneness, that's going to impact how far along you can get in this process. So how do these things reconcile?
So, yeah, I think what you're referencing is in the introduction. I was
Right.
quoting a time when Tony Robbins had come to Israel and he was
Yes.
giving something to us over here. And what he had said over there wasn't about belief. I think the
Okay.
line was, um, it's not that I want you to know what I know, it's that I want you to do what I do. And
Right.
what he was referencing there is a lot of people know what the right thing is. A lot of
Mm,
people know, oh, I really should be, eating healthy. I really should be getting up early. I really should be working harder. But
right.
that's not just knowing information. That doesn't actually change you. The doing is the embodying of it, and that actually is the believing. Belief is a
Okay.
doing. That's an action.
Right.
I'm actually belief is a behavior. It's a
Got it.
choice. So we're trying to align the way we think with something more. And as a segue, intention. The first one is reconnecting to our intention for being.
Mm-hmm.
Which means to reconnect with. If you want to use the word soul, you can say soul. You can use the word consciousness. You could use the word self. It's reconnecting inward to the who I am of the I am. Like there's an I
Right.
am in there. Um, our frame on how we see ourselves is the beginning of everything, like we spoke
Mm.
about before. So, do you recognize that there's an innate goodness to who you are? That if you didn't have a bunch of negative thoughts, who would you be without all of those thoughts? You would
Right.
just be being, right? Do you recognize that you're actually extremely capable? The most unsophisticated person, even if they're like extremely uncapable, they're still human, which means that they're more capable than the overwhelming majority of beings in existence,
Right. Right.
right? Meaning we're capable, we're people, we're trying. And even just the ability to try is an ability. Like you can actually try to be better. And do you see that as already being something valuable in you and already something good in you? And so reconnecting to intention is letting go of all of these limiting thoughts we have on about ourselves, the
Mm-hmm.
fears we have about ourselves, the our desire to not want to feel guilt and shame over not being good enough. This world teaches us at some level that we need to be better than we are to feel okay, but we're
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like you were
Yeah.
always okay. You were never not okay. You're
Yeah.
okay. Like just who you are, that's fine. And when you can tune into that goodness is your reconnection to your intention for being, which was you came into this world to grow and to learn and to fall and to fail and to make mistakes and to try and to learn from that. Like that's why you came here. That was your intention for being.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole essence, but you're good. Like your goodness has nothing to do with what happens out there. Like there's a growth process, right? If a
Right.
person feels that they're bad, they can't get anywhere. So that's intention is, are we reconnecting and realigning with our natural goodness as we attempt to expand, grow, create, and express different things in this world. If you want to dance, you want to sing, you want to write, you want to do great business, you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, I don't care. That's your creation. That's what you're doing, but your
Right.
being is already good.
Yeah. Love it.
That's intention. On the other side of the fence is everything that's not you. So
Mm-hmm.
I call that life. You can call that God. You can call that the universe. You can call that whatever you want, but it's everything you don't see as you, at least
Mm-hmm.
at the start of your journey in a world of dualism, which means, two-ness, separateness, which is our natural state as we come into this life. We see everything as separate. So we see there's our reference point, which is me, and then there's what's not me. And that's either hostile and bad, it might be ambivalent, or you might see it as good and supportive. That's now a
Mm.
choice. Certainty is the choice to look at the world with eyes that sees love and support and goodness and the
Right.
possibility of miracles showing up for
Mm-hmm.
you in your life. It's a scale. So you don't have to go all the way up to the top of the scale and say, I believe in miracles. That you don't have to make that choice. But recognize that if your starting point is, I see the world as unsafe and hostile, so you're choosing to run up this life uphill. That's what you're doing.
Wow. Yeah.
That's an active choice. Mind you, a lot of people will say, yeah, but is it really a choice? Look at the world around me. The answer is
Yeah.
it is, because there's a lot of people who choose to see the world positively. There's a lot of people who choose to see the world negatively.
Mm-hmm.
I want to parenthetically say for all people listening, um, we don't have enough time to go there, but there are the two T's in this conversation that can't be overlooked, which is we need more conversation for, which is trauma and tragedy. Yeah.
Right.
That requires more time for us to talk. I don't know how much time we have today, but within the context, even holding space for that, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
change the fact that we're living on a rock floating through space. And
Mm-hmm.
there's an oxygen and an atmosphere. And the fact is, you have a brain and eyes and nose and mouth and ears, and you can see, smell, taste, touch, have this entire human experience. You get to know what food tastes like. Like we've won the cosmic lottery just being here, right? Meaning
Yeah.
everything, like the starting point is that everything's really good. Like
Mm-hmm.
99.9% of everything has to be going right for us to complain about the one thing going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's just
Right. That's just,
how
yeah.
life is.
Right.
And so certainty is not certainty that something will happen the way that I believe it will. It's certainty that everything is working out. It's certainty that everything is on time and in place and intentional. So just if
Mm-hmm.
intention is about me,
Mm-hmm.
certainty is about the intention of everything else. That just
Right.
like I am good and doing what I can to support this higher vision, the universe is as well. And everything
Mm-hmm.
that's happening is too. The degree to which those two things can marry bring you to the third condition, which is joy. And that
Mm-hmm.
then becomes the measuring stick. That's how you see how you're doing. If you're not
Yeah.
feeling peace and joy, you can know with certainty that you either don't feel good about yourself or you don't feel good about life. And that
Right.
leads you to doing whatever work you need to do to reframe and shift the programming in your mind and how you're looking at things.
The way you explained it so well reminded me so much of the work in bitachon, right? And reliance on God, this ability to um, surrender to the one who's orchestrating everything for your ultimate good, and you don't have any you can't accelerate something, you can't slow it down. Things are moving at the pace they are, and you're just co-creating and doing. And the more you can be in that state, the more joyful you're going to be. And the measuring stick, the litmus test always is how nervous you are, how worried you are, right? That's when you know, oh, I'm not really relying, or I'm relying on all the things that are not reliable. That's why I'm nervous and worried.
Absolutely. And that I think the word there is like surrender. Like to
Yeah,
rely is to surrender control
exactly.
and to allow everything to happen as it happens. And things are okay. And when they're not okay, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
Mm-hmm.
okay when things aren't okay also. It's an openness, it's an open heart, it's an open mind,
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to move through it and to let go of needing things to be that way, recognizing that there's a goodness in you, there's a goodness in the world. A lot of people want to fight against this idea, and you're allowed to. To them, I say, okay, Okay.
How's that going for you?
Right. Yeah, that's fine. Like everyone's allowed to have their perspective on reality. We're
Mm-hmm.
all journeying through this world, trying to do the best we can,
Mm-hmm.
sharing our insights, what we've learned from our own human experience, as well as what we learned from the great masters of the world, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
people who have lived long before us, who've done this, who've done so much of the work, and they left behind a trail of wisdom for us to pick up so that we could make quantum leaps in our life so that we don't have to go through every trial and error. Imagine if every generation, like all the technology was wiped out and they had to start from scratch every generation. We'd never get anywhere. Like we'd
Yeah.
never get anywhere. Like if all the technology was wiped out, everything is built on the generation before.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be true with how we live life. And somehow uh, we leave that behind a little bit to remember people have lived life before us. They've given us so much. There's a
Yeah.
wealth, a treasure trove of wisdom to be gleaned in the world. And if you can tap into it, gosh, life is magical.
You used the word need earlier, and it reminded me of this condition that sometimes people are experiencing as they're, kind of dealing with financial struggles or business struggles. And it's this neediness, right? Like, I have to get this deal done. I have to figure out this money piece. I have to get this client, right? It's like this attachment to the outcome. Like if I don't get it, then my world is over, right? And it saps out, going back to the joy, it saps out all the joy of the journey of having started your business or embarking in your career. And it's like, I often say, if you can just like get rid of that and just surrender, you'll bring back the joy, which in turn, by the way, I find, and I want to ask you about this, there's a direct correlation between the your level of joy and the level of abundance and success and the financial wellness that surrounds you. And I think that's one of the pieces that is very often overlooked when we talk about financial wellness.
Yeah, I mean, without question, I
Mhm.
find to be what you're saying is true. But to first validate all of us, because it is all of us at different points
Yeah,
in our lives that
right.
have this need. And I think the word sometimes is like desperation. Like a
Yeah,
desperation to get
that's the
somewhere.
word. That's the word. Right.
When there are times in our life when we are desperate. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you, like I can go back and I remember times where we couldn't afford to buy milk for our kids' cereal. Like
Yeah.
I know what desperation feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it never helped really. But to validate that feeling, sometimes we need that. There is a point, certainly when we're young, where we don't know, we just don't know enough yet about life. And that
Mm-hmm.
have to, that should, that desperation is the fire that needs to get started. But we have to know that that's all it is.
Right.
It starts a fire. It's good. It has value. There's utility in need. There's
Mm-hmm.
utility in despair. It
Mm-hmm.
helps. There's something about hitting rock bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of friends who are involved in the 12-step program. They had to get to the very bottom and it turned them up, right? So
Right.
getting to despair has utility. That's what I'll say is that there's a usefulness to it if you really need something because it gets you and it pushes you to go in the direction that you actually do want to go in, but don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to get there without the need. But once you're going, there's like there's a shelf life to need and desperation, and it
Yes.
runs out. And when it goes sour, it needs to be replaced by inspiration and joy and being excited about something that you're moving towards, as opposed to I need to get there otherwise. Because
Mm-hmm.
then you're burning the candle on both ends. You're staying up late all the time. You're living in stress and anxiety and worry. And then that actually starts to ruin your production. Now, because the
Yeah.
thing that got you to where you want to be is now the thing that's going to hold you back. Uh,
Yes.
and the metaphor that I love for this is I think it's a Buddhist metaphor where someone is on one side of the river, they have to get to the other side of the river, and they find a boat or a raft, and they use this raft, a canoe or something, to get across the river. And then when they
Mm-hmm.
get across, they put it on their back, and now they're running through a forest. But everywhere they go, they keep the raft keeps hitting the trees, and it's slowing them down. And at some point, they have to realize the thing that got you across the river is not what you need to carry to get you through the forest. You have to
Right.
put that down.
Right.
So need and desperation might help you across the river at some point. At some point, you have
Mm-hmm.
to put that down and start running.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And especially before you have you we go I go back to this word awareness I use at the beginning, which is the initial you said it's the initial point of every step of, inner work and self-growth, right? We have to gain awareness when this has become an addiction, right? Because very often there's a habituation of worry that I'm not talking about clinical anxiety, but I'm just talking about right? It becomes like kind of this habit where we look even we even I see it often, see it in my life, see it in people around me. We look for problems where there are no problems. Right? Like everything is okay, I'm safe, everything is fine, everything is moving forward the way it needs to move, right? Everybody's fine, everybody's healthy, I have what I need, I don't know about tomorrow, but today I'm fine, right? But it can turn into an addiction where we're just constantly, that just it becomes like this, we our default mode is to worry and to resist what is.
You took the word out of my mouth. I was going to say, yeah, this is the default, right?
Mm-hmm.
We end up creating a default of how we
Mm-hmm.
see the world. And let's not minimize how we were raised, the type of home that we were in, our
Right.
parenting, our society that we were raised in. Like everything comes into play that creates the set point. The question's not what your set point is. The question is just what now?
What now?
Okay,
Right.
okay,
Even if
what
we
now?
were brought right
That's
now,
right.
now we have a choice.
That's right.
Now we have
What
a
now?
choice.
The fact that somebody's listening to this right now means they're already in the group of people who've decided, I want to continue to be educated, to continue to move in the
Grow.
direction of growing and developing myself, evolving as a human being. It's hard when you have a hard default. It,
Yeah.
it just it just means like that's one of the first pieces of awareness of like, oh, this is hard. This is a way forward.
So,
There's
so, mhm. Sorry.
yeah, you were about to say.
So I was going to ask you, from your, maybe take it to your own practice. Like, what are some of the things that we can do on a very practical level? We understand that how we have to view ourselves, how we have to view the world around us. But what are some practical things that we could also be doing? Belief is actionable, like you said, it's an action. What are other things that we could be doing that can help us um, be better at surrendering, be better at, living with these three conditions and so on and so forth?
So the Hebrew word for mom is Ima. That's what I
Yeah.
grew up with. Uh, EMA, EMA is the
Mm.
acronym we'll use here, which is just helpful to remember.
Okay.
Education, meditation, appreciation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meaning those are, I think, if I'm starting anywhere, I'm starting there, which is what you put into your brain is going to impact how you see things. If you spend a week listening to nothing other than people speaking positively, and that's what you listen to all the time, your brain will, like chemically, right? Everything will change. Right? This is not
So
a
true.
just a psychological idea. It's not a spiritual idea. This is a fact, right? Neurons that fire together, wire together. You think a certain way enough times, you are creating essentially habits of the brain to think a certain
Mm-hmm.
way. Think it, speak it, say it. It's a real thing. So
Mm-hmm.
education, massive. What are you listening to? What are you watching? If you're watching horror films and listening to the news, I can guess the state of consciousness you're in most of the time,
Yep.
right? Like you're probably not feeling great most of the time. And if you
Yeah.
are, I'm happy. I'm thrilled if you found a way to do it, right? That means
It's all the same to me.
you've risen above the noise. I'm thrilled. I accept you. I love you. That's wonderful. So education, meditation is uh, means a lot of different things to different people. Baseline, what I'm saying is to find time for quiet and stillness, time
Mm-hmm.
that is set aside for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And in a world that antagonizes nothing, right? It makes
Mm-hmm.
nothing the enemy. What do you mean? I can't do nothing. I have to be busy. I have to be accomplishing. Oh, this waste of my time. A waste of time is how a lot of people look at putting time aside to do nothing. It
Yeah.
is, to when people tell me they don't have time to meditate, yeah, if I say you have 15 minutes, they don't have time to meditate, I tell them they have to meditate for half an hour.
Uh-huh.
Like you have to meditate twice as long because you think you don't have any time. We have so much time, but we need time for quiet and stillness to allow ourselves to just recenter.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the biggest leaders and heroes of this world found time for quiet every day, really
Mm-hmm.
giving themselves to return to center. And the third thing, and maybe the easiest way in, if you can, and one of the most potent for sure, is appreciation. Gratitude is an under recognized skill. It is an amazing, amazing skill to be grateful for everything. Everything. You can literally be grateful for just about everything.
Yeah.
And if you do, you get two things. You get the subjective, which is I actually like this. And now what you focus on, you feel. So I'm focusing on what I like. So
Right.
that actually feels good. But then you get the objective element of gratitude, which is I'm present. You can't be grateful and not present at the same time. They don't
Right.
work. Presence is the key. It
Mm-hmm.
really is all about tuning back into what's here and now. Every
Mm-hmm.
problem we think we have is an idea about something that's already happened or something that will happen, right? 99.9% of the time, your problem's not what you're actually facing in this moment. It's some other time, which is just in your imagination.
Right.
So if you can lean into presence, again, hopefully that's what you're getting when you educate yourself to recognize you can let go of a lot of these limiting thoughts and you spend time in quiet meditation to see that, wow, I've got so much going on in my brain and in my heart. It's nice to get some stillness. And I step into appreciation. I realize there's so much to be grateful for that you re-anchor yourself in what's here now. And
Mm-hmm.
what's here now is very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, yeah, I love those three, and these things are actually things that we could do daily. Really, again, being careful with what we put in, right? It's a conscious thing that we can do every day. Choosing what podcast you listen to, what you ingest in terms of news or whatever. Taking time to be quiet and taking time to notice and be grateful. Even if take pen and paper, for some people that's what it's going to take. Like, take 5 to 10 minutes and write down what you're grateful for at this moment. Right.
Yeah, obviously there are a number of practices. There's a plethora, a massive variety of different things you can do. I choose those three because I think they're the easiest to
Yeah.
implement. Because I think people are listening to things anyway. They're watching things anyway.
Yeah.
So watch
Hmm.
what you're putting in there. Find
Yeah.
time for quiet and recognize what's already there. Journaling's a big one. We have an It's All the Same to Me journal that people love. And it's just time to sit and allow what's taking place inside to get on paper. I
Hmm.
personally, I'm a Gemini, which means I live in my head sometimes. I mean, I'm a Gemini moon, so for me, writing is really helpful when I'm either physically writing or putting it into my phone because my head can get cluttered, and I
Hmm.
know that about myself. So
Yeah.
if you know that, like putting it onto paper helps, get a journal.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You, towards the end of the three conditions, you talk about something that might be of interest to the audience, and some people might call it manifesting. You talk about co-creating blessings. I love the way you worded that. Can you walk us through some of those steps that you give us at the end of the book? We don't have to go through all of them, but they were very nice ideas. And I think the audience who's looking to grow, who's looking to, quote unquote, manifest maybe more abundance in their life, this idea of being active participants in co-creating blessings, you have several steps here that might be worthy of us going through.
I think the main thing to remember when it comes to co-creation and manifesting is to realize that you're doing it all the time anyway. That's
Yes,
the beginning.
thank you.
You're
Mm-hmm.
doing this no matter what. And that's on every level. To manifest is another way to say to actualize, to take something from potential and to make it real.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to say, did you manifest the food getting from the plate to your mouth and you used a fork to get it there into your mouth? The answer is yes, you did. You did a great job. You manifested that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just used your hand to do it. I think today when we use that word, when colloquially we use the word manifest, we think woo-woo when we think spiritual, because there's just a higher plane of there are spiritual things and certainly psychological things you can do to make yourself prone to miracles, right? Somebody once said, uh, you can't make miracles happen because miracles happen on accident, but you can make yourself accident prone, right? Right.
I like that.
So yeah, so it's like how these things work. so much to discuss. There's thousands of pages of Kabbalah that go into this. There's thousands
Right.
of pages of, spiritual ink that's been spoken about in every major spiritual and religious path all around the world. But if we were to narrow it down, it's what you think about and what you believe is reflected in how you feel and your state of
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. That is an energy. So when you think about certain things, does that make you feel good? That's one, right? Like it's super simple. Like if we're going to make the steps really simple, I know in the book I write many, many more and try to make them as detailed as possible. But for the few minutes we have, if there's something that you think about and it makes you feel good, that's a good starting point. It's called something that you want that there's no resistance to. Again, it
Right.
has to be resistant-free wanting. If you think about the house you want and then you feel bad that you don't have it, it's not going to help you. It actually is working against you because you now feel bad because you thought of it. So we have to start with things that get us into the state of
Mm-hmm.
connectedness, that state of abundance. And that's how we ask. And
Mm-hmm.
whether that's a literal verbal ask, a prayer, or that's writing it down on your goal sheet, or that's printing out your vision board, which you can't see behind me right now, but whatever you're going to do, it's asking. You're putting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, I when I first started this journey years ago, I wanted Deepak Chopra's endorsement on
Oh, look
my
at
book,
you. It's right here.
right? And what I did was I printed out I have it somewhere in my drawer. I printed out a copy of It's All the Same to Me with an endorsement from him. It said something else. And I had that on my wall for almost 10 months before I finally got through to him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like you live with that. So that's the first step, is to ask. The second step is to actually let go. That's probably the
The
hardest
hardest.
part. The hardest part is let go doesn't mean don't stop moving towards it. Move towards it, but it's letting go of the neediness for it to happen when you want it to. So letting go of the timeline and how you want
How
it
you
to.
want
Let
to.
it go of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Let go. You do whatever is in your power to do. Go do and act, right? But you open yourself up to then receive. That's what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. To
Mm-hmm.
be in a receptive space means to be joyful and positive in the process as you're going there. Um, this is not a new idea. This is an ancient idea. This is in the Talmud. This is in the Medrash. This is in every major spiritual path. If you go on YouTube, you probably find a million people speaking about manifesting. But the main idea over here is that when you are clear on what you want to go towards and you feel good about that, and you feel hopeful and positive, to the degree that at the highest level of that, you can even experience the feeling of what you would have that already here now. There's a piece
Right.
in the Zohar, in the Kabbalah, one of the great mystical teachings, that says that the moment a person asks for something, they have to embody the experience of knowing that
Mm-hmm.
they've been answered. Like in
Mm-hmm.
that moment, I'm already answered. So you have the ask, and then you immediately step into the receiving mode of that asking,
Mm-hmm.
and then you walk in the direction of it. That's the oversimplification of that chapter.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I was thinking of the same thing of the vision board. I always say put in the vision board things, but you have to feel it. It can't be just like random images that are not really connected to you. Like just because it's a fancy car doesn't mean it's the car that you want, that makes you feel like, oh, that's the car that I'm gonna go live my life, and do my errands in, or whatever it is, right? You really have to feel it. And there's also this really beautiful Hayom Yom from the Lubavitcher Rebbe where he says, um, something to the effect that the businessman has to feel like the money is already in their hands. Like you have to feel like it's already yours. You didn't get there yet. You didn't close the deal. The client didn't come, but you already are operating from that place of it's arrived. And I'm in that state, that energetic state. And it's work. It's daily work, but we can do it.
Yeah, we can.
We can do it. And you're helping us do it through these beautiful works. Before I let you go, do you have 2 minutes to do Jewish Money Matters? Fill in the blanks. This is the part of the show where I give you an open-ended sentence and you finish it with the first thing that comes to mind. You're game for it?
I like it.
Awesome. Okay. When I give Meiser or Tzedakah, I like to give to
I give to people who come to my door
mm,
a lot.
nice.
Yeah, and for those who don't live in Israel, people come to your door a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a big thing for us. I know what that's like for them.
Yeah, yeah. We just had this conversation in our family. We also have a lot of people who come to our door, and it happens to be it's like a very big deal in my family with my kids. Everybody runs to get the pushkas if my husband's not around, or if I don't have the cards or whatever it is. Or sometimes it's like late at night, I don't really feel so comfortable, but I just want to open and give them some, like, when my husband's home, he brings them in and he feeds people. And it's not like we have a couple, two men from Israel, like, who come often. And one year they said to my husband, it's not just the tzedakah that's good, it's the hospitality, like my husband like feeds them and sits them down. It's become part of our family. So I
We
like you.
we we literally have people who my wife is that person in our family. I don't know if I would cook for people who come to our door. I don't even know how to cook all that well, but my wife brings people in. It's the most amazing thing to see. We had 4 or 5 people at our wedding who my wife met throughout her year in seminary, giving money to on the street. And then
Wow.
during when we were engaged, she went and gave invitations to them to come, and they all came. These like 4 different homeless women,
That is
just
so
unbelievable. We
beautiful.
had a
That is
table. They had their own table. I think they banded together and bought us a book. They bought us a book from the Chafetz Chaim, like as a wedding present.
so
And again, that just spoke volumes and volumes about who
right.
my wife was. It wasn't like a shtick or anything. This was just who
Right.
she is. So,
Right. So beautiful. Just recently, 2 nights ago, somebody came. I was alone with my son. And by the time I kind of reacted to, like, do I open the door? Do I give him Menachem, get the pushka, find money, something? The Mashulach had left. And we felt so bad. And I give my son the money. We gathered it and he went outside to find him and he was gone. And a little while later, he comes back running in the house. Mommy, I found him. He's in shul. I'm taking the money. Bye. And he ran to shul. It was so beautiful. And then he comes back after Mariv and tells me, I got the longest bracha that I've gotten in my life. Whoa.
that's
It
so
was
cute.
so cute. All right. Something I wish I'd learned about money growing up is
Ooh, I could fill that with a long list. I wish I knew. Gosh, so I wish I knew about budgeting. I wish I knew about taxes. I wish I knew about the S&P.
all the things they don't teach us in school, huh?
Yeah,
All the practical things.
yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
at the deepest level, I wish I knew that I didn't have to worry as much as I just had to take the action. I think that
Mm-hmm.
was probably years ago. That was the biggest hurdle for me was the worrying. There was a
Yeah.
worry around it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us learned it from, that's what we saw. That's what was modeled for us. But again, we can break free from those that conditioning, I guess. All right, money. Here's one. Is it spiritual or physical? What do you think?
Both,
Both.
mostly spiritual.
Agree. Something I splurge on unapologetically is
Mm, maybe I should splurge on myself more. Uh, Unapologetically, where do I spend? If it's for my wife, then I don't think. And if it's for anything that has to do with um, promoting my mission, I don't really think.
beautiful. Very nice. Moshe, spender or saver?
Spender. I'm a Sagittarius. I spend money.
Oh,
But
is that,
but
do they
yeah,
go
yeah,
hand
yeah.
in hand? Yeah? I did
Yeah,
not know that.
yeah, yeah. They have a harder time with saving. I'm really good at it now. I've worked really hard. I've got other parts to my soul, but yeah, but not spender as in like, oh, I'm running around spending money, but spender like I'm not thinking about that. It's more like, but we have it now. There's something to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. All right. Today I'm most grateful for.
So much, most to be alive.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And I love what you said before. Like, if we really focus, like, there's so much to be grateful at any given moment. Like, you won't stop thinking about what to be grateful for.
I also had a great day, so it was really hard today. I was like with my family today, and I had a wonderful meditation session, and then a
Good for
great
you.
day at the hotel. Got a lot of things taken care of today. I met with a couple really wonderful human beings today that are doing big things in the world. I was able to help them with some stuff, and then I'm on the call with you. So far it's been really, really terrific. So really great
Very,
day. Happy to be
ve
here with you.
very nice. And the last one, and you can take this any way you want. I am Moshe Gersht, and I believe Jewish Money Matters because
Because energy matters and money is
Mm,
energy.
yes, so true. Well said. Thank you so much, Moshe Gersht. Thank you for everything you're putting out in the world. Tell us where we can connect with you, and where we can follow your work.
So all the books are on Amazon, so that's nice and easy. My work, you can find most of it at moshegersh.com and probably most active on Instagram. But I'm on all the platforms, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, if they still have TikTok in America.
Apparently today they do. Yesterday,
Okay,
no, but
so
today we do. I don't know.
okay.
Thank you so much for everything you're doing. Thank you for coming on the show.
Pleasure. Thank